10,000.
Yeah, and then the vendors that you that for ice cream and for beer and for sandwiches and pie, they didn't want to show up either. So
Right.
You know, that kind of reminds me of I did. Maybe I told you I did this ride called Ride the Rockies, actually a long time ago at this point. And I still remember this gal who had a Volkswagen bus, and she made smoothies, and she was always running with the entire group of 2,500 cyclists. And she would just set herself up someplace at one of the rest areas and make those smoothies about as fast as she could.
Cool. So does that, Jack, does that ride have a specific name in Iowa?
yeah, it's called the Des Moines Register Annual Great Bicycle Ride Across Iowa. RAGBRAI is the acronym.
It's a RAGBRAI. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Well, that's cool.
Yeah, so I think this year I may have to admit I'm not as fast or as strong as I used to be and get an electric bike. I hate to do it. Pardon?
Sometimes it comes to that.
Well, that's right. That's right. Some of those hills, just a level. You get those little bit of assistance from the battery.
And who do you do the ride with?
I do it with my college roommate and some other people from about 20 of us. We have a team from my college, so
very cool.
we do that.
Well, welcome other guests, Robert, Salisbury, and Katie.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
Nice
And
to see you
Carol.
too.
Yeah, thanks. Carol and Donna and Rosemarie Sweet. And not everybody's signed into the audio yet, but may just be securing their spot for the meeting later. But anybody having any winter adventures around here? Like out for winter hikes or snowshoes or cross-country skiing?
I want to hear how many people got out skiing during that beautiful snow we had last week and early this week.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dave and I have been out several times. It's been perfect snow, so we have loved it. We've gone to Mendon multiple times, but now we're ready to check out some of the other parks that also groom if it doesn't melt too much and rain. I hate for the rain to come when it's cross-country ski season.
Now, I only do the Quaker Pond Loop, okay? But do you folks try the 10K race course by any chance?
I've tried it unsuccessfully. I like to hike the East Esker, but I don't like to ski it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we do.
I haven't done that 10K course this year. I crashed and I broke my hand one year and I'm kind of gun shy.
Oh no.
For good reason.
Yeah, we do ski the North Meadow and the South Meadow and a big park tour loop from Stewart Lodge, which gets you to the rugby field and back kind of thing through the woods. Who else has been cross-country skiing?
Snowshoeing.
I did some snowshoeing.
Yeah, who said they've been snowshoeing?
I've been.
Reinhard and Craig, and Cindy, where are you guys snowshoeing? And Rich?
Well, I just wanted to report, Joe, that our intro to winter backpacking program went pretty well. We had that right after that, it was like the third weekend in January, the 21st to the 23rd. It was right after we got that pretty good snowfall. And yeah, we had a total of 13 people participate, spent the night out in the woods, camping, and everybody survived. Nobody had to go to the cabin. Everybody survived in their tent. when I asked the next morning how everybody did during the night, the responses ranged from excellent to okay. So,
That was a very cold night. I mean-
yeah, it did. It got down when we started the program that Saturday morning. It was in the negative numbers. You know, it was down by Harriet Hollister Spencer
Yes.
on Irv Schanz's property. It was in the negative numbers. But Saturday during the day, it warmed up into the low 20s, and then Saturday night it was in the teens. So it was a good, it was a good test for folks to see, how it was going in the winter.
And
How
people
was
said-
the snowshoeing there?
What? I'm sorry, Cindy, come again?
Is it worth it to run a hike, like a Sunday hike out there with snowshoeing?
Well, we did snowshoeing, there's not a lot of elevation gain or loss. It's not like going up to the Adirondacks. We did a couple of hikes, one snowshoe Saturday morning and one Saturday afternoon. And I think total mileage for the day was probably around 8 or 9 miles that we did. And total elevation gain between the two hikes was probably around 500 feet. So it's very well suited for cross-country skiing. There's a lot of cross-country ski trails there in Harriet Hollister.
Yeah, I skied there.
We did a little bushwhacking, off trail, just so everybody had an opportunity to experience trail breaking and snowshoes.
Well, that's great, Reinhard, that was so successful. Good job for offering it and making it happen and holding out in the cold, cold weather.
We'll do it again next year. So.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Craig, where have you snowshoed?
So we went down to, it'd be the northwestern end of Hemlock Lake, and we went down the side of the lake a short while and then headed up a gully up into the hills there. And that was pretty good. Actually, we came to a small waterfall that had been frozen, and my friends turned me on for the first time to a little bit of ice climbing. So that was, I didn't expect that at all. It was pretty cool.
Okay. Well, the Thursday ladies hike had a great snowshoe hike. The Thursday that all that snow had come, we were doing Indian Hill, but we started from the Thayer Road entrance, and we got a 5-mile snowshoe in, and it was a great workout that day. Cindy, you were there, right? You're muted, Cindy.
And last Sunday, Larry took us to Webster Park, and the snowshoeing was fabulous. It was just perfect.
Good. Okay. Hi, Dave Harrison and and Sue.
I just wanted to put in a plug too for a place right close to where we live, which is Pinnacle Hill, and it's it's not. You'd be hard pressed to get a couple miles of snowshoeing in there, but it's just beautiful, and it gets you up high enough that you get this great view all the way south to Bristol Hills. It's really, in 40 years of living here, I don't know how many times I've been up there, but it's a great hike all throughout the year, and snowshoeing is a lot of fun up there.
Where is Pinnacle Hill?
Well, if you know where Cobb's Hill is, it's basically the next hill to the west, and it's the one with the radio towers on it.
Okay.
Off Field Street.
Yep.
Okay.
Field Street.
I'm trying to think if you hike Washington Grove, that's not part of Pinnacle Hill, is it? Okay.
You have
No,
mashed
yeah,
potatoes in the microwave.
What?
Jill, do you know where Hillside Children's Center is?
Yes.
It's like behind there.
Okay. All right.
Right. The one hazard of Pinnacle Hill is that it's kind of been claimed by dirt bikers, you know, I mean, pedal bikes. What do you call that? I mean, we're going
Fat bike.
Mountain bikes, mountain bikes.
Mountain bikes.
mountain
Fat
biking, I guess, yeah.
Fat
And
tires.
yeah, not particularly well, fat tires enough. I mean, these are guys who are serious enough that they're wearing like body armor and helmets and stuff like that. And they've created jumps there
Those
and
jumps are
everything else.
crazy.
Oh,
Yeah, they are. And you
motocross?
have to,
Do they
and you have
call
to
it
be a little,
motocross?
yeah, kind of. And you have to be a little careful about where you go hiking there because some of these guys are a little bit reckless.
There's a large group of them, Bill, who are trying to take over part of the Whiting Road Nature Preserve in Webster.
Oh, wow.
Oh, really? Yeah.
And they have
You know,
they have their large balloon tires, and they're out there in all this snow. They're just having a grand time.
yeah. Pinnacle Hill is kind of a unique situation because it's actually privately owned, though I have no idea who owns it. And the owners make no attempt to stop people from hiking it, biking it, snowshoeing it. I even saw a skier up there last week. So everybody uses it, even though it's private land.
Good to know.
Fun fact also, there was a Catholic cemetery there ages ago. St. Patrick's Cemetery, it was called.
Really?
Okay.
Oh. They moved it?
Apparently.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Is there anything left of the cemetery, Bill?
Apparently one of the houses right down the street from us has got a pile of headstones behind it from the place. I've never seen that, and maybe that's just urban myth, but that's what I'm told at any rate. And people have claimed to find, bits and pieces of headstones and that sort of thing. No, luckily no human remains showing up. I mean, because this is all just glacial till. And with every rain, all kinds of stuff just comes, tumbling down, but nothing has been unearthed or disinterred.
Good.
I heard ice climbing a short time ago. Sorry to interject here, and it's caught my ear. I climb ice as well. The falls off of Hemlock there that you were climbing, it was the one right by the trail.
Oh, just Raymond?
Well, the gully came down to the trail, but we had to hike up into the gully. Oh, geez, I can't really measure how far. It must have been a couple hundred yards, maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah, and it was about, I'd say the ice was about 20 feet high, maybe,
Oh, okay.
something like that.
Probably not a drive-worthy destination then.
I guess if you're experienced, probably not. It was my very first time, so it looked really big to me, but yeah, it's probably, if you've been doing it a lot, probably not too much of an interest.
You caught my attention. Thank you.
Sure.
Where do you ice climb? Where do you do it?
I'm located around the Buffalo area, but I climb all over Zoar Valley, Big. Just worked with an advocacy group there to make sure that was left open. We have a local county park, which has worked with the county to make sure that was open. I do climb out Rochester area, Adirondacks, Vermont, all over.
Wow, cool.
Are you part of a group?
Nothing formal. The advocacy group I mentioned is relatively new, and we formed to advocate for it. Western New York Access Coalition is the name of that one, but it's as close to formal group as it gets.
Cool.
So you said Adirondacks, does that include Pitchoff Mountain, right behind Pitchoff Mountain there?
Oh yeah, all over. North Face to
Chapel.
Pitchoff is a real
Yeah.
big destination.
Chapel Pond.
Yeah, I've spent plenty of time there.
Yeah.
Do
Well,
you happen to know Jim Wallace? He climbs stuff like that.
I know the name more from Cranberry Lake stuff than ice climbing though.
Right. He posted someplace, Salmon River Falls or someplace.
Yeah, that's a DEC unique area. That's pretty epic as well.
So is anybody going to the lodge trip? Anybody? Reinhard, you are? Okay, anybody else here going on the lodge trip? That's always a good time.
You're right. It's always a good trip. By the way, I just want to report in case anybody's planning on doing any snowshoeing down the Bristol Hills Trail. I was down there with a group on Saturday, and we were going to do Cleveland Hill, and come to find out the section of the trail from West Hollow Road to Clement Road, it goes through Camp Cutler. You know, the Boy Scouts have property down there. That section of trail is closed. They've closed it because they have a logging operation going on, although I don't believe there's any logging going on right now, but they just feel that hiking through there is too risky. We happened to run into someone who introduced himself as kind of like a ranger for the Boy Scouts. And we didn't realize the trail was closed. We were planning on snowshoeing up. We parked our cars along Clement Road, and he stopped us before we got on the trail and told us that that section of trail is closed. Going to be closed until May.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you find an alternate route?
Yeah, we went over on the other side and climbed. You know, we started at the jump off in Ontario County Park, and then hiked down and then back up. Gannett Hill is over there.
Okay.
The closure is listed on the Finger Lakes Trail Conference's site, and the bypass on County Route 33 is listed there.
It is. You're right. We were told that. Of course, none of us checked that ahead of time, you know. So shame on us, but you're right. The ranger told us that it is listed. Yeah.
Has anyone made it down to Cumming Nature Center
Oh, yes, I've been there.
this year?
Yes.
Who's saying that? I'm sorry, I couldn't tell who. Karen? Did you say that? No, Karen?
No,
I
I
don't
just
know.
joined.
Hi, Karen. Okay, welcome.
Hi.
Well, we'd like to get to Cumming Nature Center to cross-country ski, but we haven't made it there yet. They do a fabulous job of grooming, though I think they have mentioned on their site that they're having a little difficulty with their groomer. So I don't know about that. Hi, Esther. Welcome.
Sure.
We actually went there a few weeks ago before the snow was really good. It was kind of okay. It was there was some stuff poking out on the wilderness trail, but otherwise it was good.
Okay.
But be all covered up now. It shouldn't be any problem.
Where's your supper?
Have you been on winter adventures, Karen?
Yeah.
Can
Definitely.
you tell where?
So where did we go? To the Catskills, I think. Where did we go?
You've been hiking in the Catskills?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, actually, no, we went to Lake George. We went to Lake George the one time.
Okay.
Karen, I haven't seen you in 20 years. I don't know whether you remember.
Yeah. Huh. We actually, you know what? Actually, we stayed in Loon Lake and we hiked off Igana Road. But the mountains are there after Chestertown 8.
I didn't quite get that.
They've made up, we hiked off Igana Road.
Oh, okay. You hiked.
Yeah. So where you lived, you know.
Yes.
There's some mountains there. They're part of the Chestertown 8 now.
Okay. Are you still in Rochester?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Okay. Anybody else have any winter adventures coming up?
I'm curious what the sign is behind Mark.
Behind Mark.
Me, Mark?
Yes.
There's no sign, but it's a background from part of the Finger Lakes Trail.
Okay.
It looks like a white blaze on that post.
Mhm.
exactly what it is. And early morning is when this was taken. They probably ran off a bunch of cows out of the field.
For me, hello to Donna too.
Hello.
Hi, Donna.
Hi.
Hi, Mary Ruth. And Carol.
And Dave.
Mark, are you an end-to-ender?
I am.
Oh, good.
Oh.
When did you finish?
September 15th.
Oh, very recently.
Yes.
Congrats.
What is your number?
503.
Wow, they're really getting up there. I'm 323 and Shirley and I finished in 2012. So the numbers are climbing higher.
Slowly though, still. They're not going that fast.
Yeah.
So what's that called? Is that hiking the Finger Lakes Trail? It's called an end-to-ender?
Right.
Okay.
That means that you've hiked the entire main trail, which is roughly 560 miles across the state.
Well, it's grown since the terminus on the eastern side has moved to the summit of Slide. So we're about 584 is the number most often kicked around now.
Yeah. Thank you for correcting me. I tend to overlook the fact that the eastern terminus has been moved to the summit of Slide. So for the people who are hiking and climbing in the Catskills, that's a great one to add to your itinerary.
Mark,
Yes,
I might be contacting you for a presentation as a possible presenter in the future. So
Yeah, there's probably more to my story than you've realized too. I ran the thing recently, so.
oh, okay. I'll be contacting you.
You ran end to end?
I did.
Mark, be very careful what you say with Katie listening.
Katie is our program chair and she's always looking for programs. So
yes. So if anybody on here has a story, feel free to contact me for future presentations.
I don't understand why the trail would end on Slide.
Well, it ended previously at the junction with the long path, and which is also kind of in the middle of nowhere. There's an article, I can dig it up real quick and send it along with some of the rationale behind the move there. It's a bit more iconic a location. There's some local history with the plaque just past the summit that makes a good destination, and it's pretty up there. There's a great view. It's almost a bald summit. Just off the summit, you can see quite a bit. I'll dig the article up from the FLT News and pass it along here shortly.
Thanks, Mark.
wow.
I was watching the half pipe last night. Sorry. So like the girls are doing it, they're like jumping, they're getting all this air, right? Like US, Canadian.
Or has anybody skied or traveled to other winter adventures around here? We're going and trying Lapland this next weekend. We've never skied there, but our daughter asked if we wanted to join her. And so, has anybody ever skied at Lapland in Northville? Cross country?
Yes, a few times. Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
Okay, good.
I usually like that we've done Jackrabbit Trail. Yeah.
Does that hook up with it?
No, I mean, it's groomed, it's all sorts of difficulty.
Okay.
Used to be run by somebody from Finland, but now it has new owners, I think.
Okay. Well, I will learn about it soon when I get there this weekend. Let's see. So Thursday this week, the women's group is hiking it's been mentioned, the Whiting Road Nature Preserve and Gosnell Big Woods, in case anybody's interested in a Thursday morning hike. It's from 10 to 12. And we're always looking for new hike leaders as we need some for some of the Sunday hikes coming up. So I don't know if that's of interest to anyone. If you don't feel like totally ready to lead a hike, there is also a leader training workshop coming up in March 19th, Saturday. And it's
so.
it's going to be run by a crew from Genesee Valley at the Parenton Ambulance.
You're gonna have it maybe tomorrow or no?
Let's see. So Reinhard, you're on the crew of that, right?
For the trip leader training, yes.
Yes. And Jack, are you part of that? And I don't know, Jackson, are you?
I'll be photographing it. I won't be there for the
Yeah,
entire
Jackson did it.
program.
Okay,
You can register online to that. If you go to the website, if you go to the GVC website and look at events, it'll be on the events, and you find the event for March 19th, and then you can register there and Google Forms.
Dave and I are taking that, so we'll be there.
You can almost help do it, Jill. You've been leading a lot of those Thursday
Yeah.
hikes.
I have been leading hikes. Well, just see if there are any tips that I don't know about.
Jack, we're gonna have to be on our toes.
Oh, yes.
So if you'd like to join us and become a new hike leader, we would love more leaders. I think anybody can lead. I kind of jumped in there when the Thursday leader did not want to lead during COVID. And anyway.
Jill, did you say that the hike to Gosnell Big Woods is tomorrow or next week on Thursday?
It's tomorrow.
Okay.
It is a ladies hike.
Right.
Yeah. So
Well, I'm asking for Shirley's sake.
okay, yeah. We're meeting at Vosburg Road parking lot, hiking through the woods at Gosnell, and then crossing Pellet Road into the Whiting Nature Preserve.
Right.
So it'll be a 4-mile hike, about 2 hours.
Okay.
So.
So
Shirley.
for those who are interested in the movement of the Finger Lakes Trail Eastern Terminus to Slide Mountain Summit, Mark has posted a link on the chat site. You can go down to the bottom of your screen, click on chat, and you can click on that link. Thanks, Mark.
Jill, did you see Gene Binder's question on the chat?
No, I don't. I'm sorry, I don't have the chat box open. I will.
Yeah, he asked about whether we're going to be meeting in person or virtually for the remaining meetings until June.
I answered that, and the plan right now is to have the meetings in the Eisenhart Auditorium for the rest of the time. That all depends upon COVID, unfortunately, but that's our plan right now.
Thanks, Dave.
Yep.
So hopefully next month, we'll see you all at the Rochester Museum and Science Center in the Eisenhart Auditorium. And I think Bruce will have some workshops also starting at 6:30. Do you know what the workshop is that's scheduled, Dave?
The workshop in March is on fly fishing. That's kind of a new one, and that should be interesting.
And Katie, what's the topic in March?
The topic in March is Henry Horvath, who is a young man who, together with his father, set a fastest known time record on the Northfield Placid Trail, and how that journey led them to climb Denali. So it's very, very exciting. Another fastest known time record.
Okay. Right. So, and tonight, the fastest known time of the 46, right?
Right.
For Bethany and Katie?
Yep, very exciting, yes.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's great. Yeah. So how many people here are 46ers? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm seeing at least 7. There might be more than that. Okay, Karen, are you a 46er? Kind of think you are.
I just raised my hand.
Oh, I see that little hand.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I was trying to find the background picture, but I'm not very successful.
Okay, so 8 of us. Well, I've hiked a few, but I'm nowhere near 46.
I'm halfway.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm a halfer.
I have about 19. And Donna, you're working on the 46. You've hiked quite a few of them.
I just have 7.
Well,
It's a start.
that's a start. That's great.
Good
That's
start.
7er is a good number, Donna.
Thank you.
Okay, folks, I'm going to interrupt the social time, and we're going to move on to announcements for a short time, and then we'll move on to the presenters. So I'm Dave Nichols. I'm the chair at this point. I'll make a few announcements, and Todd also wants to make announcements. I'd ask everyone to please, everyone who's not speaking, to please mute. You can mute your audio down in the lower left corner of your screen. Appreciate that. It just keeps all the extraneous noise down a little bit. And if I do see a little bit of background noise, I may end up muting you. I apologize in advance to having to do that, but makes it easier for everybody. So let's get on with announcements. Jill in the social time mentioned that we're looking for trail leaders. I just mentioned that Larry Telly, who has been one of the trails co-chairs and also been the Sunday hike coordinator for many, many years, he's just stepped down as the Sunday hike coordinator. And Jim Miller, the other trails co-chair, has agreed to step into that position.
One of us should turn off.
We would love to have many of you, in addition, help out by becoming trail leaders. And you can see, you can write to Jim or to Larry about leading trails at trails@adk-gvc.org. Again, that's trails@adk-gvc.org. Or you can also look them up on the website. The next announcement, the Expo Committee is getting very excited about this year's Outdoor Expo, and they're starting to look for volunteers. They need people to help set up and tear down, to greet guests. Sorry, had to mute somebody. Guide vendors and assist workshop hosts. So if you want to learn more, contact Carrie. She's the Expo volunteer coordinator, and she can be reached at through an email at adk.expo.volunteers@gmail.com. You can also find volunteer information for the Expo at the ADK GVC website. If you click on play at the top of the page and then select Outdoor Expo, there'll be some information for you. We really can't host events like this without your support. So please consider spending a few hours volunteering at this really tremendous community event. The next announcement is from Beth Wheeler. Beth is the Finger Lakes Trail Steward. She leads us in taking care of our leg of the Finger Lakes Trail. And she tells us that it's once again time to get energized, to do trail maintenance, and to renew the camaraderie from doing so. Our trail is about 8 miles in length in the North Hornell area. And she's set aside dates of April 3rd, June 6th, and October 1st. Last year, we had 24 members come out and help out on the 3 weekends to do trail maintenance. and we really appreciate that. So consider helping this time. You can contact our friendly steward extraordinaire for more information at flt-steward@adk-gvc.org. Now I'm going to admit more people into the meeting, and I will swing the microphone over to Todd Williams. Todd is our family chair, and he wants to make an announcement.
Thanks, Dave. I actually have two announcements, if I can take the liberty of that. My first hat is to promote the Canadian Ski Marathon. You see, I'm wearing my toque from last year, as well as my bronze medal that I earned for skiing 100 kilometers in 2 days, which was quite a feat. I didn't think I could do it, or I had doubts about whether I could do it, but we went ahead and did it. But again, the marathon is not just a race. There are other people on this call that made it their goal to simply ski a 15-kilometer section in 1 day, about 9.5 miles. And they achieved that and also earned their hat for doing that. So the Canadian Ski Marathon is open. About 2,000 people have registered at this point, and it runs for the next 5.5 weeks until March 20th. So it's not too late to sign up. I'll take that hat off and move on to my other hat, which, as Dave said, was the family chair. We just had another event this past Sunday at Cumming Nature Center, snowshoeing, and the family hike drew in 22 people, I think. So a great turnout. About a third, I think there were 8 kids. So a great turnout, and plenty of over 60-year-olds or so. Some bringing their own children who were adults. So some great family outings. We had a great 3-mile snowshoe in the sunshine in 30-degree weather. So I'd encourage anybody who wants to come on a family hike, a little shorter distance than many of the ADK hikes, a slightly shorter pace, and just a great time a lot of people enjoyed the camaraderie and talking with each other. So at this point, I haven't decided what date our trip will be in March, but if you email me at family@adk-gvc.org, I'll make sure to let you know when it's been posted to the event calendar. So looking forward to some more family hikes. Thank you, Dave.
Todd. Thanks, Todd. So for just a few seconds, I'm going to replace my picture with some information. Oh no, it's over. I didn't think that through. Okay, so if you need to get a hold of any of those folks, you can go to the website and find each of them, whether it's Finger Lakes Trail Stewart or Trails Hike Leading, Helping, or the family chair, or what was the other one? The Expo volunteers. So that's
Dave,
it.
maybe we could put it in the chat.
I will do that. Thank you.
Now I want to cast this.
Okay, I'll put it in the chat room. I also put in the chat room the dates of the FLT maintenance. So there was some question about that. So look in the chat room for that. And I'll switch it over to Katie, who will introduce our presenters for this evening. Oh, Bill, you raising your hand for something?
Yeah, Dave, I just wanted to mention to everybody that all those addresses you were talking about can be found on the website under our chapter contacts. Okay, so they're all there.
Yep, thanks, Bill. Okay, so I'll still put them in the chat room just so you know. And I'm going to swing over to Katie to introduce our presenters tonight.
Okay, great. Thanks, Dave. So welcome, everyone. I'm Katie. I am the programs chair for the Genesee Valley chapter. Thank you for coming, for tuning in tonight. We have Bethany Garretson and Katie Rhodes with us to present on their 46er accomplishment, which is that they set a fastest known time record for a female unsupported through hike of the Adirondack High Peaks, which is pretty crazy. As you all know, there's 46 high peaks. The miles that they covered were total miles was 183. The total combined elevation gain was 65,000 feet, which just blows my mind. And they completed it in an astounding 7 days, 4 hours, and 50 minutes. So beyond the astounding athletic achievement, their story is a journey about friendship, perseverance, trust, and healing in the outdoors. So let's hear from Bethany and Katie.
Awesome. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We just have some photos and things like that we want to share with you guys. That in the slideshow mode. There we go. All right. So this is going to be our discussion of the 46 Unsupported Thru-Hike, like Katie mentioned. We call this the greatest through hike in the world. So this will go through kind of our day by day, some of the memories we shared together, and you know, some of the logistics behind it, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions that you guys have. Sophie, if you want to go ahead and kick us off.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming out tonight on Zoom, and you know, very excited to be here. This is Tahas, my dog, who I'm gonna put down on the floor for right now. So my name is Bethany, and I'm a professor at Paul Smith College, and I also teach a class at Clarkson University, and I've also just started to help with some study abroad programs at St. Lawrence University in Kenya and Nepal, because a bit of my background is being a mountaineer at higher altitude. And that picture of me in my mountaineer garb that was taken out west before the pandemic on Mount Baker, and I was doing a crevasse rescue course out there. I'm also a writer, so I was writing for a few different magazines, and still do, mostly on mountain adventures. And I started writing when I was in college, and started writing for local ADK when I was younger. And I am an environmental and social justice advocate. I do some work for She Jumps, which is an organization to get women and girls outside, and I'm a brand ambassador for them. And I also work on a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion programs in the Adirondacks and my town of Keene and at Paul Smith College. And I do a lot with that, trying to get more people outside and make it a safe, inclusive place for all to be. And I love hats. Got one on tonight and had one on when I was just a little kid there. And yeah, that's pretty much me.
Awesome. So my name's Katie Rhodes. A little bit about me. I do have a big girl job. It's funny because, you know, people see things on social media, and I post a lot about my hiking and my mountain adventures and things like that. And I've had a lot of people ask me, like, do you work? Yes, I do work. I'm an industrial hygienist. And if you're not familiar with that term, basically I'm responsible for being aware of and mitigating occupational hazards. So things like chemical exposure hazards, high noise, radiation, biologicals. And I work for SUNY Polytechnic Institute in Albany right now. I'm also the president of Adirondack Mountain Rescue. So we are a local volunteer-based search and rescue team. We're based out of the Clifton Park area. So I took over as president late last year in that capacity. And one of my passions is public education, outdoor public education. And so that's a huge part of what we're trying to do right now. We call it our Preventing Search and Rescue Initiative. We figure the best medicine is prevention. So we're really trying to make sure that there are adequate offerings of free and very low cost public education classes and courses and things like that to help people understand how to get into the backcountry safely and develop those skills in an accessible way. We also recently initiated a scholarship program for some of our courses. Right now, we're holding some ice axe and crampon courses. Those are throughout Saratoga Springs. We have an offering in Keene, area at Whiteface, actually, I think it is. And then we have a couple offerings out a little bit west of us near you guys in the Syracuse area, Utica area. And so we're offering scholarships for that program. If you know anyone that could benefit from that, that doesn't have access to, ready access to winter gear, winter hiking, courses or classes, things like that, they can apply on our website. So I definitely encourage you to pass that information along if you know anyone that could benefit. I'm also a New York State licensed hiking and camping guide. I work for a company called the Scenic Route Guiding. That's really fulfilling for me. I get to bring clients out and make sure that they summit safely and teach them backcountry skills. And so that's kind of a little bit of a side gig I do. And then I also consider myself a mental health awareness advocate. We'll talk a little bit more about why that is in some of my history on that front a little bit later in the presentation. And last but not least, I'm a homesteader and a fur baby mama. So you can see one of my kiddos there. We've got cats, dogs, chickens, ducks. We're going to be getting goats in the spring. So it's a little bit of a funny farm over here, but my husband and I live on a homestead in just west of Saratoga Springs, and we strive hard to produce most of our own food and live a little bit more sustainable lifestyle. So that's me. You want to take the slide B? I feel like you speak to it a little more eloquently than I do.
I can take it. So for me, the through hike, the idea of the through hike goes back to these two guys, Jan and Corey, and they are legends. And I was a recent college graduate in 2009 when I heard about this, and I actually had just started hiking in the high peaks in 2009. And I realized something about me is once I got out there and I summited my first mountain, I just wanted to keep going. So I think my second hike in the Adirondacks was the Great Range, because someone told me like, oh, you can do 8 mountains in one day. And I was like, that sounds amazing. And then someone I was talking to on trail, and I love this trail magic that happens and kind of how things come up. And she was from Montana. She and her husband was climbing Mount Marcy, and she was a bird watcher. So she was on the South Meadows Trail watching for birds. And I started talking to her, and she's like, where are you coming from? And I said, Marcy. And she's like, oh, you, and she was asking how, like, if I had seen her husband, or, she was describing what he was wearing. And she asked how long I had been on trail. And I was like, oh, maybe like 3-4 hours, because I was trail running it. And she's like, what? And she's like, you have to hear about these 2 guys that just did this through hike. And she gave me a magazine article, like she gave me the newspaper that was in her car. And I kept that article for years. It survived so many moves. I started writing about it in my journal. I started like listing out the gear list. And I eventually met Jan. He's actually my neighbor now. I live in Keene, and Jan's just my neighbor, and we run into each other at the post office, and got to meet Corey. And by 2016, I gave it a go. I tried it solo and got to day 5 and came out from complications due to heat. It was really, really hot and 90 plus and humid, and I didn't feel like I could safely go as fast as I needed to. And I was also solo, and I had some, run-ins with heat exhaustion, like pretty severe ones. And so I came out between Haystack and Basin, and I just sat at that junction for a while and didn't really know what to do. But I do feel, especially going through this with Katie and finding her as a partner, or she found me, I should say, it was meant to be this way, for sure.
All right, so I think Katie covered this a little bit, but we can talk about, just some of the details of what we actually did. So what we completed was the first female unsupported through hike of the 46 high peaks. So we climbed all 46 of the high peaks in the Adirondacks. When we completed this, there were a handful of men who had done this. There were no females, and to date, we are the only females that are known to have completed this unsupported version of the Thru-Hike. When we say unsupported, people sometimes are a little bit confused and they ask us questions like, yeah, but how did you get, from Cascade to Whiteface? And the answer is we walked. We walked between trailheads. We walked everywhere. We never stepped foot in a car. We didn't receive any support outside of ourselves. So, we chose to start from the Corey's Road trailhead, start with the Seward Range. We drove ourselves to that trailhead. We got out of the car, and what was in our backpacks is what we had for the 7 days until we were done. So we carried all of our food on our back in bear canisters. The only thing we retrieved throughout the journey was water from natural sources only. So we chose to use iodine, some people filter. And besides that, it was no assistance in any way. And we just got ourselves from point A to point B and ultimately finished at the Atmospheric Research Center trailhead after completing Esther as our final peak. So our total time was 7 days, 4 hours and 50 minutes, and 183 miles and 65,100 feet of elevation gain in that time. So that's about 5.5 times Mount Everest if you were to climb that, which sounds, pretty cool when you say it like that. We averaged about 26 miles a day. So, we did a little over a marathon a day, or a little under a marathon a day, and about 9,300 feet of elevation gain. Overall, we were the third fastest time. So like I mentioned, there were a few groups of men who had completed it before us, and we were the third fastest among them. So that's the stats. I can speak to this one, B. So one of the big things that we wanted to do with this effort before we left, I heard about this event. It's called 46 Climbs. The American Foundation for Suicide Prevention is an organization that puts this on every September. It's an individual from the Adirondacks area who actually came up with the idea and facilitates it every year. And the idea is that you commit to climbing, a mountain or set of mountains or a trail or whatever it is you're physically capable of. And you ask those that you know to support you in your effort by donating to 46 Climbs. And then all of those funds go back to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. And those go towards mental health resources and education and suicide prevention education, things of that nature. So for me, this was really personal. In 2011, I lost my brother Tim to suicide after dealing with a severe neurological condition and depression for most of his life. So you can see us kind of dorking it up there in a couple of the pictures. We were pretty close in age. We were very close. And so his death had a pretty significant impact on me and kind of the trajectory of my life. And when I met B and when we were preparing for this journey, it was something that I was really starting to need to have a reckoning with. Even though he passed in 2011, and this was, 2019 at this point, it's something that I had kind of like pressed down and not really addressed. And it was causing me to have issues with anxiety and depression myself. And so part of the purpose of the journey was to raise funds for this organization, something that felt very close to my heart. And part of it was also to bring healing to myself. So, and, we kind of accomplished both of those things. So at the end of the day, we were able to raise over $4,000 for AFSP and 46 Climbs. So that felt really awesome to be able to bring that to the table as well. All right. You want to go through our itinerary, B?
Sure. This is going to be a quick slide because we have the days. We're going to take you through the journey with us day to day. And this is a nice shot, though, of how the mountains broke out, and day 1 through 8. And I think, Katie, we can go right to the next slide and we'll start talking about day to day.
Awesome. But before that, we have to talk about how the heck we started, how the heck we met and decided to do this. So I guess it all started with a Facebook message, right?
Yeah.
So it's funny because when people hear about our Thru-Hike, they assume that we've known each other for a really long time. June of 2020, I just randomly got this interesting idea in my head of, it would be really cool to link all 46 high peaks together and, just do them in succession. I think that would be a really beautiful, unique way to experience the high peaks. I'd already become a 46er. I'd completed all 46, and I thought it would be a really challenging way to experience them. At the time, I didn't know if I could do it. And, I certainly wasn't planning on trying to do it fast, but what I did was I got online to the fastest known time website. So if you're not familiar with fastest known times, it's a website that was developed where athletes will submit routes, and then they'll submit how long it took them to complete that route and proof that they did it in the time they say they did. And so others can go on there and see, how fast has this route been done, who's done it, that sort of thing. And it's just kind of a fun, friendly competition that you can do. And it's a great way of tracking who's done what, especially for some of these bigger efforts. So I went on and I found the website, and I found the section for the 46 High Peaks route. And I'm scrolling through, and it's just men's names. And I really like to bring this part of the story up in detail because there was a very solid moment for me when I thought to myself, if no woman has ever done this, I certainly can't do it. And it's interesting because, I've been told my whole life representation matters, and I'm sure most of you have too. And I'm sure, you understand and believe it to some extent, but until you experience it, I feel like it's not something that's a really strong reality for you, because that was a big moment for me, to have that thought. So I kept kind of poking around. I was definitely feeling discouraged, and I ended up finding Bethany's name associated with a very similar FKT to this one. And I randomly reached out to her on Facebook, and I thought to myself, well, this woman probably is going to think I'm insane because she has no idea who I am. But she didn't. She was very receptive to the message, and we started talking. And like I said, that was in June of 2020. We decided to meet up in July and spent a few days in the woods together just to see, if we were compatible hiking partners. She had started to broach the fact that she might go for an unsupported run of this again. I wasn't necessarily thinking it was something I was capable of joining her for, but of course was very supportive. On our last day in the woods during that July trip, we went out, we climbed, I think it was 5 or 6 high peaks. It was a very rainy day. We ended up at the uphill lean-to. So for those of you that are familiar with the backcountry in the High Peaks region, that's right at the base of Cliff and Redfield. That's the lean-to there. And we were there with some friends, and a huge storm rolled through. We were safely nestled in our lean-to, started to fall asleep. Around, I think it was 11 p.m., the storm broke, and we started hearing calls for help in the night. And immediately B and I looked at each other, and we were like, we have to go find whoever this is. So we went out, we ended up finding a distressed hiker. He had tried to climb Marcy earlier in the day, was not physically able to do so, decided to turn back. His friend went on without him. This person did not have a map, did not know how to navigate the trails, ended up making a wrong turn and was going away from the trailhead. Didn't have the right supplies with him. And ultimately, long story short, he ended up getting confused and following the opalescent stream bed rather than the trail at one point, which, to be fair, some Adirondack trails are stream beds. So I guess I could kind of see how that could happen. And ended up getting himself in just some deep vegetation out there and got stormed on. And by the time we found him, he was mildly hypothermic, and we had to bushwhack in and get him and warm him up in our sleeping bags back at the campsite. And he ended up being fine, and the rangers came and got him in the morning. But when we got back to our site, what we realized was there's rangers out looking for him. He had activated a PLB, a personal locating beacon. And so we decided, we're physically able to, and there's another storm coming in. So we need to go somewhere where we can get service to warn the rangers and let them know we have him. You don't need to send personnel out and endanger them with this next storm that's rolling in. So we went and climbed Redfield at about midnight. Got service, let the rangers know he was safe and sound, came back down. And throughout this process, we realized we barely know each other, and we just completed a incidental backcountry rescue with really no issue. We must be pretty compatible partners. So that was really the moment where we said, okay, let's go for this thing. Let's go for the unsupported. We're compatible. We work well together. We do well in the backcountry in high pressure situations. So let's just go for it and see what happens. So then we started planning.
Yeah. So, and on my end, it looked like a rainy day in June, and I was on my laptop and this message came in, and I was so excited because it was the first time a woman had ever asked me about the through hike and doing it. And I was really excited at the idea of that. And since 2016, I had been actively looking for partners to do it. And it's just such a hard thing. And I've reflected on that more and more, of the beauty of us completing it. It is a tremendous challenge. And I know not just anyone can do it. And so when I started talking to Katie, I knew she could, and I knew it would be a really special hike if we could do it together during the pandemic and during like this time in our life where we both needed some good outdoor healing. And so the gear list I had been working on for a long time. It's sparse. It's very sparse, but we both have backgrounds in wilderness first aid and rescue, and did not want to be a burden on the DEC system, which is already overtaxed with lots of rescue calls. So we did go into it with knowing that, like, hey, if we go into this, we're getting ourselves out of this too, whatever happens. And we had checkpoints, and we covered our list. Shelter was, lightweight, navigation. We know those trails a lot, but we also had map and compass. We had cell phones fully charged that we kept off until we got to summits, and we gave updates as to where our location was. Insulation, from layers to our sleeping pads that were cut in half. We were cutting every pound we could. And hydration, really important. And in the Adirondacks, we're blessed. We have so much water. We have so many fill spots. So we stayed well hydrated. Nutrition, we'll talk a little bit more about that day to day, but Katie makes amazing granola bars and has a company of her own with her husband called Toganola, and she makes dehydrated meals too. So we ate really well out there, and have no complaints there. But the majority of our weight was food, so we had to think very strategically around the calories we were bringing, and knowing that we had enough to get through each day. First aid kits, had some repair kits. Katie's a master with that, and I think it was Dave. Well, we'll get to it, but I blew out my pack on the Great Range from like the bottom had the bear canister in it, and it kept like hitting as I was like sliding down rock sections, and all of a sudden I felt like my bear canister coming out of my pack, so she taped it. And yeah, we had stuff to make a fire in an emergency situation, and we had a fire one night where we legally could.
Yeah, so we just pretty much went really Spartan with it while being strategic and smart about making sure we had our 10 essentials. But like Bea said, cutting down weight whenever we could. I believe our starting weight, mine was 40. And I think yours was a few pounds, a little lower.
Yeah.
38, it was something like that. Yeah, 38.
We might have a picture on this, but mine weighed 28, 29, and yours was like 32.
Okay. See, it was so long ago now, I can't remember.
Yeah. I'm proud of that pack weight for a week. Like that's good. We did a good job.
Yeah, that's pretty good for 7 days, I would say. I would argue.
Yeah.
For me especially.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll get into the nitty gritty of it. We do have maps on each section. Day one, like I mentioned before, we started on Corey's Road. We had a little bit of a alpine start, so we started a little later in the morning. And the idea there was we wanted to just give ourselves this perception of, we're just going for, a day hike for the first day, no big deal, kind of a shorter day hike. And that was kind of our running joke each day was, we'd wake up and say, oh yeah, we're just going for a little hike, or over to Allen, over to Santanonis, just going to do the Great Range, and sometimes you have to frame things to yourself that way just to make it seem more attainable. So we came in from Corey's Road. We decided not to go up Calkins Brook. A lot of people have done that in the past. We wanted to make sure that we had our full packs on as little as possible. So we went to the base of Seward. We dropped pack. We had a separate ultralight day pack that we would take with just our essential gear in it. So we'd basically just drop our overnight gear. We went up and back. So Seward, Donaldson, Emmons, back down, moved our pack, up Seymour, back down, and then ultimately spent the night over in Duck Hole, which was a lot of fun because I had done the Northville Placid Trail 3 weeks earlier with some friends and my husband, and we had stayed at Duck Hole during that trip. So that was kind of a fun, we stayed in the same lane too, in the same location, and I could kind of think back to those good memories. And every little thing kind of keeps you going when you're out there. So Seward was our first summit. I definitely recall having thoughts coming up Seward. We were fresh and we were excited, and we definitely went in a little hot, and I thought to myself, oh dear, what did I get myself into? It was a pretty warm, humid afternoon, and you just kind of have those initial thoughts of coming in too hot, and I need to kind of chill out and slow things down and settle into the trail and start to flow with the trail a little bit. And we were able to achieve that by the end of the day. Unfortunately, we were using what's called Tailwind. So this is a product that's very popular among athletes. The concept is it's a drink mix, but it also contains calories. And so one of our strategies on this trip was we were trying to reduce digestive energy loss. So we didn't want to have to break down food as much. And so we used this liquid, this powder that you dissolve in liquid in order to get some of our calories. So about 200 calories at a time in each packet. And some of these are caffeine based. And that's not something that I think we did a good job about communicating on. So B ended up drinking like a massive amount of caffeine before bed the first night. Oh no, is it 3 of these caffeinated Tailwind packets? And there was not much sleep to be had on night 1. So I'll say that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a very interesting experience for sure. I was scared going into day 2 because I didn't get any sleep. I was laying down, so like that's good for the body. But I'm not a person that drinks a lot of coffee or has a lot of caffeine, and I felt really good at the end of the day. And I was like, we could keep going. And I was thinking that at like 2 a.m. when I was just like lying awake. But and that it did finally hit me that, oh, I think the Tailwind I was drinking was caffeinated. And so just switched the formula on that, doing a caffeinated one earlier in the day and then uncaffeinated later in the day. But it definitely, I was worried going into day 2 because each day gets harder on the through hike. And so going into Santanonis and Allen, we left Duck Hole early in the morning and was feeling okay, but I was certainly worried about maybe how I would feel at the end of the day. And we had to get all the way over to Allen and up Allen. So next slide, Katie, let's see some pictures. Yep. So this sunrise on Panther really helped me and just get me kind of like my head in a good place. And it was a beautiful sunny day. So we were looking for a nearly perfect window of weather and we almost got it. Our first day was a little humid, but it broke overnight. So we knew the humidity was going to break. And we had a perfect fall day the next day. And, just being on Panther and then going to Cooch and over to Santanoni, it was just an amazing experience. We dropped full packs again, and we did the little day pack that you can see on Katie's back. And I think that was really crucial. Like the first 2 days, you have heavy full packs and you have a lot of miles to do anyway. So I think it just really saved our knees and our ankles to not have that on the whole time, because there are options you can do on both of those mountain ranges to, stay full pack and then take it off and do little sections and, come down Stantononi Express. But this worked. Katie was just like in a really good headspace and, really leading this day. And she was pretty much running to Alan. And I told her, I was like, you gotta slow down. Like, I got a full pack on and we're doing like over a 4 minute or 4 mile per hour like clip. And yeah, I was just like, you gotta slow down a little bit. But it was good. We had like a strong day 1 and a strong day 2. And I think by the time we were coming off of Allen, we were in a groove with it. And Allen to me is just a very sacred mountain. There's something about it that feels very spiritual and like a goddess sort of energy, and asked for a blessing up there. And we got it in the sunset, and that was a good just feeling, because going into the thru hike, even if you are 100% on your training schedule, this is still, I think, like best chance 50-50 to get. It's to get all the way to the end of it. A lot of really great athletes have tried to do it, and you got to come out at some point because of injury or gear not working, and that's what makes it really hard. It's unsupported. So as soon as like you have to receive aid from the outside, it goes supported, and the supported records are just like really low to start with, and it's a completely different style. So day 2, we got our blessing, and I was able to sleep that night. And Katie, you can go to day 3.
Yeah, I was definitely feeling good on day 2. I remember it was bluebird skies, it was sunshine, and I was rocking and rolling. Oh. And then day 3 came along and put me in my place. So day 3 is a huge day. We started by just establishing ourselves a camp near Lake Colden. So we came up in what B has termed, and I love the term that she originally shared with me, coming in the back door of the high peaks. So from Allen, we came in through the flowed lands, set up camp near Lake Colden, dropped all our full pack gear, left, a bulk of our food in our bear can, that sort of thing. And then we took our day pack. And you can see on our maps, I don't think I called this out, the orange route that's called out, that's where we had our full pack on, and where it's green, that's where we had our day pack on. So that's the color representations on the maps that you'll continue to see. So from there, we went on to do what we call the Lojo Loop. So we went up, grabbed Marshall, hit the summit there, came across, next we grabbed Iroquois and came across the McIntyre Range. Right, we dropped down, went through the lodge. So at this point, you've already done an entire range. You're dropping down off the range, getting to the lodge parking lot, then you're going up Street and Nye. And I do remember that was the first time during the trip that I started to feel just sleepy, really, I think is the best word for it. I don't know that my body was very beat up at that point. I was used to big, long days back to back. But you get kind of down there in, the trees with, as you're ascending Street and Nye, and it's kind of warm, and it was a little after lunch, and I just started to get kind of like lackadaisical and sleepy, and I wasn't moving super fast. And that was the great thing about having a partner, though, because that was the exact moment where B was feeling really energetic and great. And, so she was kind of bringing the energy up for the both of us. We summited Street and Nye, came back through the lodge parking lot. And then from there, we headed over to Phelps, and it's the late afternoon at this point. It was really fun to watch hikers coming out after a day of hiking, and asking us how much farther to the lodge parking lot as we're coming in to do 3 more high peaks. So we came in, got sunset on Phelps. So we can show the photos there on the bottom right corner. And then it kind of hit us. We have 2 more high peaks to climb today before we're done. And it's already been a pretty large day. So I think this was our longest day mileage wise at, do you remember what the mileage was on this B? 30?
Yeah, I think it's around like 34.
34. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this was our longest day of the entire trip, which was nice to get it done with early on. And then from Phelps, you know, we dropped down, headed over to Tabletop, and then ultimately we had to come up and over Colden, which that's really where the fatigue started to set in for me. And I was just kind of following feet at that point. It was dark, it was late. It was almost midnight at this point. We'd been hiking since early in the morning. But we came up to Colden, we got to the summit, and I remember both of us just kind of stopping on the summit and having a moment of, we could see the lights of Placid and, you know, the stars twinkling, and, you know, you kind of feel like you're just the only person that's out there, and it's the stars are kind of twinkling for you only. And, you know, it's just a really beautiful, peaceful moment. But unfortunately we had to head back to camp. So we dropped down towards Lake Colden on the backside of Colden Mountain. We were in purgatory for a while, descending those stairs. If you've ever climbed Colden from that side, you know what I'm talking about. The stairs go on forever. It seems like you're like, I've been hiking for 3 hours and I'm still above tree line. How is this physically possible? But perception of time gets a little altered. Ultimately we got down to camp, and it was around 1:30 in the morning when we got done for the day, and got a few hours of sleep.
Yep. So day 4 is the storm, and this had been the one blip on a nearly perfect forecast. We saw it, like we saw that there was a chance of rain this day. When we were in the woods though, we weren't getting, you know, updates on weather, and this did intensify a bit. We started near Lake Colden at our camp, got Cliff and Redfield, felt good, you know, like this is day 4, we're getting to the range. Like our goal was to do the whole range this day, and that's clutch. You know, I was already feeling really good about this, of we weren't having any issues with our body, we were on record pace, we were going for the overall time. And this storm, like this rain, it wasn't falling yet. It was cloudy, but we got gray, we got skylight, and then it started to sprinkle. And we started to head up Marcy, and the wind started to get really, really intense. And we're on Marcy, and I don't know if we have that photo with me holding like my pack cover, but it's like, yeah, right there. It's whipping, you know, like that wind against your head. And I'm holding onto my pack cover. And what ended up happening was going off of Marcy. Well, to go back just one step, when we're on the top of Marcy, I had my first moment of this is bad, this is not good. I was getting that spidey sense of, I just don't like this feeling. We're going into the range, and we came off of Marcy, and then going through the Great Range Trail to Haystack, the trees really get you. It's almost like a car wash you're going through. So legs are wet, you know, feet are wet. The range is starting to become flooded. So it was quite an intense storm. And we were at the junction for Split Rock, and, you know, we're starting to talk about like, you know, we can't go on like this, you know, to Haystack, and responsibly, you know, like without getting into an issue or danger, like endangering our lives, because record's just not worth it. And the mountains will always be there. And I, you know, we were at the junction, we were talking about dropping to the lean-to, and then thought of Snowbird, which is a campsite near Haystack on the range between Haystack and Basin. So I ran ahead and I checked it, and it was completely flooded, you know, like a good 6 inches of water on all the spots. And so there was just no way we could camp up there. And, you know, we really wanted to, because it was such a blow, because I knew if we stopped, we would lose the overall record. We could still finish for females, But going back to that spot of, you know, Katie talking about representation matters, it does. And I'm such a fighter. And my mom was a Title IX 4-sport athlete. She was one of my coaches, and I was just tired of the FKT scene and women coming in second to guys all the time, or not, I shouldn't say all the time, but a lot of the time. And I wanted this record to come home, you know, again, you know, to locals. And so there was a lot of emotion there. There was a lot of cursing. We eventually dropped to Slant Rock because we knew we kind of had two options. It's like you either come completely out and you try again some other time, or, you know, you see what you can do. And we had to lay out all our food, all our gear. Mine got really wet from the pack cover and trying to like get a tent out and see if we could set it up somewhere. And so between us, we found enough dry layers for us to stay safe. We cuddled and we figured out our food system and where to like make an extra day of food. And we had some buffer food with that. But the next morning we were still really wet and knew that we needed to get dry because the next night was going to be our coldest night, going down to about 30 degrees.
Yeah, so that was, I would say, one of the lowest spots in terms of, you know, emotional throughout the through hike. And at the end of the day, you know, we talked about it a lot afterwards, and we were just so proud of ourselves for prioritizing our safety and making a good decision. It's so easy to not make a good decision in a situation like that. When you have your sights set on a goal and you just, you know, summit fever, it's a real psychological issue out there in the mountains. And ultimately, you know, we did make the right decision and we ended up finishing the through hike anyway. And I think we would have been disappointed if it had gone any other way. You know, even if things hadn't played out badly, if we had tried to go on coming up the Saddleback Cliffs during a storm with a full pack on, it's not a safe, reasonable thing to try to do. So we woke up in the morning, we were still feeling pretty low, you know, the trees were still wet, you know, there was still some water on the trail and we're kind of slogging along and it's a cool morning. Made our way back up. We had dropped about 1,000 feet, which, you know, in the scheme of things wasn't a lot extra, but any extra feels like a lot when you're already doing such an enormous effort. So we made the climb back up, headed out to Haystack, and then ultimately came across the Great Range before dropping down at the end of the day in Elk Pass over in AMR, in the AMR region. You know, after we summited Haystack, we were coming across the basin. And there was definitely a moment where, you know, B turned to me and said, you know, if the sun doesn't come out soon, we're not going to be able to dry our gear. And we were having a bit of a reckoning of, you know, are we going to be able to finish this thing? Are we going to be able to stay out here? And so we both got kind of quiet and we're just hiking along and, you know, kind of down in our low point. And I remember I just, you know, I kind of turned to her and I said, you know, we need to finish. We're going to finish. And even if that means that we lose the FKT and it's no longer unsupported, we can get you fresh gear. It doesn't matter what we need to do, but I feel very connected to this journey now. And I feel like I need to finish it. And as soon as I said that, I saw the spark in her eye and I knew that I had her. And a few minutes later, she said, well, I want to finish too, you know, so it was like, okay, we're back on, we're doing it. And ultimately the sun did come out. We ended up having a gorgeous day coming across the Great Range. Got some great photos through here. You can see by the time we got over to Lower Wolf Jaw, we had really just hit our stride. And I call this our album cover art here in the bottom right-hand corner. You know, if we were a band, this would be the front cover of our album for sure. Looking cool. But yeah, so, you know, we just knocked out the Great Range and it was just a playground for us that day. We were just having a great time. One small snafu with B blowing out the bottom of her pack with her bear can, but luckily, you know, we did, no matter how Spartan we were going, we still had our 10 essentials. We had a repair kit with us. I had gear repair tape. We taped it up and it held throughout the rest of the effort. So it's those little things that, it's not worth shaving that ounce. You need your repair kit, you need your medical supplies, you need your map and compass. Those things, they're going to get you where you need to go. They're worth that extra weight.
Yep. So this was a pretty special day. This is a 9-peak day. And we started at the campsite, it's on that beautiful river, and we were able to have a fire there the night before. So that definitely restored my spirit, and just having dry gear. It was a cold night, even with everything dry. It was a little chilly. We were in this small 2-person tent and cutting at this point. We had to embrace the cuddle to stay warm. And got up the next morning, did Colvin, Blake, and at this point, it's funny, we had been in our own little bubble for so long, and I don't think we hardly talked to anyone about even what we were doing, or, we were just kind of in our own little world. And this was the first time we met a fan on trail who has become a good friend to both of us. But it was, that was the first little snapshot of what was going on the outside, because 46 Climbs was posting updates every day. Katie's husband was doing updates on her social media. And so you could just feel this, like, sort of, you're nowhere near the finish. You're still like 60 miles out. It's still a really far ways away, but did feel like we had gotten through the storm and we were moving forward. And, when we were on these mountains, Katie started to experience some discomfort in her legs, and I noticed a little bit of a limp. So that was definitely concerning. And, checked in with her because, again, just like not trying to outrun a storm in any way, I didn't want her to get an injury that she was going to have to spend a really long time recovering from. And but we checked in and kept going. And something I've learned about Katie is she has a strength bank that she has depth. She has real grit, and she doesn't stop. And so at this point we went from Nipple Top to Dial. And then we did the bushwhack, just pointing and bearing. And that's a pretty, bushwhacks aren't my favorite, but that one's not too bad. Over to the Bowcat, you cross the Bowcat, and then you get on the Dix Trail. And came up Dix nice and slow. That steep pitch. Just put in music and kind of got on Dix, and felt really good about getting into the Dix range, because by the time we got done with the Dix range, and Katie, you can go to the pictures. We were ending on Grace, which was a really powerful mountain for both of us. And it's mountain 39. And that has a real feeling to it of you're close to 46. And we noticed that the sky was really hazy, and it was like this really beautiful sort of glow to it. And that was from the fires out west. And, we're day 6 going on day 7 of being pretty cut off from the news and the world. So that's its own special space, and you can just see a different beauty. And that is one thing I'll say, I'll say like 99% of the people that have heard about us doing the Thru-Hike have been extremely supportive of us doing it. But, there's always a party pooper out there. And most of the party poopers will have a comment around like, oh, stop trying to run these mountains. They're too beautiful for you to run through. And the Thru-Hike, you're really not running. It's if you're able to average even just like 2 miles per hour, that's great. But lots of times we're far under that, maybe even just like a mile. per hour on the really steep stuff. We're just like, we're going all day. And this is a week of my life I'll never forget. You know, it's like we're almost a year and a half out, but I still remember the smells and the sights and, you know, how the air feels on your body, how crusty my socks got, and, you know, how the stars look and the lights of Placid. And so I'll just say on this day, I was just really reflective and thankful that we had made it this far. And it felt like an accomplishment already by the time we reached Grace.
Yeah, well said, V, definitely. And the Dix range is like just one of our favorite ranges. So it was awesome to be up there together. What we ended up doing is dropping off Grace and just camping at one of the sites along the Bouquet. And so in the morning on day 7, we got up, we descended down to Route 73, did the road walk over to the Giant Ridge trailhead, and then headed up to Giant from there. Like B said, the day before, as we were approaching Blake and Coben, I started to experience some pain in my right quad. This is something that ended up, you know, causing me some discomfort throughout the rest of the journey. What I believed happened was, I think I got a little bit dehydrated and probably short on electrolytes up on the Great Range. It's so exposed up there and we were so deep in the effort at that point. I ended up just having like some cramping in my quad, which ended up straining it a bit because, you know, you are using it pretty aggressively. You're asking a lot of your muscles. So yeah, I was just dealing with some quad strain issues after that point. But it would loosen up as we go, you know, we just wouldn't break for too long. Got ourselves up to the top of Giant. And that was a special moment too, because I remember the previous day we met someone who knew who we were. We were a little surprised by that. It was the first person we had met. And then we got to the summit of Giant on this day, day 7. And all of a sudden we just heard the loudest scream. And we were both so startled because it had just kind of been us in the woods doing our own thing. And it had been pretty quiet to this point. And it ended up being a woman who recognized who we were with her friends. And she was just so excited. She couldn't help but let out a big scream. And, you know, we got to talk with them a little bit and they shared with us, you know, how inspiring our journey had been. And they were following us on social media. And that's when we really started to realize, okay, people are apparently following us and are paying attention to what we're doing. And that's, you know, just really a beautiful thing that we're inspiring people. Because, you know, when we set out on this journey, I know personally, I thought, you know, my hiking friends are going to think this is super cool. And my mom's going to say she's proud of me, but I didn't think that, you know, the general public was going to really take much notice. And it turns out, you know, they did. And they were, we got messages, hundreds of messages after the fact, especially from women and parents of young girls that, you know, this was something that they followed along and it really meant a lot to them. So that was really special for us to learn. Ultimately, we dropped off Giant, went over, grabbed our PR, came back down. And then this is the part of the journey where you're doing quite a bit of road walking. Like I mentioned before, it's an unsupported effort. We never step foot in a car. So we're walking between the trailheads. We headed over to the garden from there, hiked up to Big Slide Mountain, and right around sunset is when we got to the start of our last bushwhack of the journey. So that was, I think, something that both of us were wondering about how that was going to go. That was I think both of our first time bushwhacking in the dark. It ended up being a really beautiful experience. So for those of you that don't know, the trail to Little Porter has actually been closed in recent years. It goes through private land, and that landowner has determined that, you know, they're not going to allow the public to use that trail. So instead, to go from Big Slide over to Porter and Cascade, most people do this bushwhack across here, and it is a little bit rugged. And it took quite a bit of time in terms of navigation and things like that to make sure that we were staying off private land. That was something that was really important to us. We didn't want to infringe on their land rights. And then also just keeping ourselves in a place where it didn't get too thick and too gnarly to get through, where it was really slowing us down. And like I said, it was dark at this point, night had fallen, and you're kind of you just have that bubble of light in front of you. You've got your headlamp, and it was just a really peaceful experience. And I think for me, it really helped me navigate through that bushwhack, because the only thing I could see, the only thing I could worry about was this little 5-foot bubble in front of me. And I'm just going to get through that, and then I'm going to see what happens. And we kind of just went along in that way. And ultimately we popped out just before the junction between the Little Porter and the Porter Mountain trails. Snuck over to Porter, grabbed that summit up to Cascade, which was at this point an absolutely gorgeous night. Windy but warm, and just a perfect September night. So we went up to the top of Cascade, and of course we were the only ones crazy enough to be up there at that hour. It was pretty late at this point, and just had it all to ourselves, and we could see the lights twinkling from Lake Placid and from Keene, and you know, just kind of enjoyed that solitude. Came back down. There really are no camping spots between here and Whiteface, which was our next destination. And so what we did was we chose to just bushwhack off trail about 200 feet, making sure that we were complying with the regulation. And it was such a beautiful warm night that we didn't even set up a tent. We just cowboy camped. We laid down our sleeping bags in just kind of a mossy area and just laid down. We got about, I think, 2 or 3 hours of sleep, and then woke up in the morning and decided, you know, we're going to finish our journey. So last day, the finish, Whiteface and Esther.
Yeah. So I think about this finish a lot. I drive up to Paul Smith's just about, you know, every day during the week, and that road walk from the Cascade trailhead to the Jackrabbit Trail. So you're going over to the golf course and by Topo Hostel, and getting on the Jackrabbit Trail. And especially when I'm coming through it there at night when it's dark, because Katie and I, we set out right in the morning, and we were walking that road in the dark and got to the golf course just as it was starting to get a little light in the sky. So, and then you hit another road walk. You go from the Jackrabbit Trail to River Road, and you're on that for a good 3.5 miles. And then you get on the Whiteface landing road and you go in. So like, this was a nice finish. Like, we had some really just cruisy road walking and pretty flat, even approaching Whiteface. But then that last like mile up of Whiteface, our legs are pretty toast at this point. And I definitely started to feel that when we were descending Cascade. It's a feeling that I've only had one other time in my life, and it's you know, it's pretty painful descending. Ascending was still okay for me, but the descents were starting to hurt. And by the time we were coming off Marble Mountain, that last mile just that felt really, really harsh. But this was really special. You know, we're getting up Whiteface. We are using all of our food. You know, we came out with no food. We ate the last of our food right before we started off for Esther. It was a cloudy day. It was a little rainy, but we got to Esther, and we just like, that was a really powerful moment, laid down by the sign, like Corey and Jan had done. And it's so funny because, you know, like, I know it's special in the moment, but you still you need to get out, like your food's run out and you have a few sips of water left, and you know, there's people waiting for you. And so it almost means more to me now, looking back on it and reflecting and seeing just what we put our bodies through, because you notice Katie's eyes, they're not like that. She has very beautiful eyes that open, but she was getting very puffy. So this will happen in endurance events, especially when your sleep starts going down. So we had gotten more sleep at the beginning of it, and then over, well, like the last night, we're not getting much. We kind of slept on a tilt, and so my ankles were puffing a little bit, and So it's happening. Your body's just like, it's going to stop eventually. So we still have to get down, and we had quite a finish when we got there. You know, family, friends came out. Some of my Paul Smith students came out. I was supposed to be in class that day, but because of the storm, I had to send like an email from one of the summits while I still had service of, I'm not going to make it. Just tell my students class is canceled, but a lot of them had been following along. So they actually came out to the finish, and I still have that poster in my office that they made for history being made. 7 days, 4 hours, 50 minutes, the first women to our knowledge, ever do it.
Yeah, so that's it. That's our journey. We get a lot of questions about our food systems, how we manage food. So we kind of threw in this slide as well. One of our rules, and this is just an ongoing rule I think that we both follow, is during exertion, we're always trying to consume 200 calories per hour, just constantly having that fuel coming in. One of the things that we did for ourselves before we started the journey is we pre-portioned everything. So each day had a baggie, and this was our food because we knew about how long we were going to be moving that day. And at the end of the day, before we were allowed to go to sleep, we had to finish what was ever in that bag. You know, we had to make sure we were getting those calories in. We also focused on foods that were high calorie to weight ratio. I'm sure a lot of you guys have used this concept in your hiking before. Things like peanut butter. I had a soft flask, like a liter soft flask that I just filled with really sugary peanut butter and Nutella mixed together that I was just squeezing in my mouth. So, you know, you're just trying to get calories in however you can. And then, you know, like I mentioned before, minimizing digestion, energy loss by using like liquid calories, things like Tailwind, and carrying no more than necessary. And I'm really proud of our food distribution, because we did eat that last bite, you know, right at the junction for Esther, and then walk out with nothing. So we knew we didn't carry any more weight than we had to, but we also didn't go hungry. If you listen to podcasts and look at trip reports from others that have done this unsupported hike, I don't know if it's because they're men and they're more readily burning calories, just, you know, physiologically, that tends to be the case. But they'll all talk about, you know, I was so hungry the whole time, and we never had that issue. We always felt pretty satiated. It's a little concerning towards the end because you are starting to run out of food, and it's just not a feeling that you're used to experiencing in the modern world. But at the end of the day, you know, we never went hungry, which was fantastic. It makes you feel good that you planned well. So that's it. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'd love to answer any questions you have now.
Yeah.
Thanks.
No, go for it.
What an incredible story.
Thanks.
There's a question from Todd. How much did you sleep each night? It sounds like very little. And then Katie asks, how much did you sleep after the finish?
A lot.
Yeah.
Lots
Yeah.
of sleeping afterwards.
Yeah. So had this formula, wanted 6 hours of sleep a night, and or at least off our feet. So the first few nights we were able to do that, kind of like get into camp by 10, get up at 4. That was more of the consistent model, but we had a few that were off, like got in at 12:30, but kept off for 6 hours. So we got up at 6:30. The day of the storm, we actually got to catch up on sleep a lot, and got a really good sleep there. And then at the end, knowing that, you know, we weren't going to hit our wall the last day, or we had like 24 hours, like just going for 3 hours. Didn't want to sacrifice too much early on. And then afterwards, got home, took a shower, felt like a zombie, laid down, ate a turkey sandwich, fell asleep. It was around 6 o'clock, and I woke up at 9 o'clock the next morning, like sleeping a solid 15 hours without waking at all.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I definitely slept a lot for probably a week and a half or so after. I was just getting an abnormal amount of sleep each night, just kind of letting myself sleep for 12 plus hours each night, which felt awesome.
There's a question from Jeff. how did you train and condition physically and mentally for this amazing feat?
Yeah. So for me, I did not consider myself an athlete before this effort. I had been doing ultra hiking for quite a while. And that was just something that kind of naturally developed. You know, I would go out and I do full days in the mountains, and I just had so much fun. And it was just kind of like, well, if I can do 20 miles, maybe I can do 24. If I can do 24, maybe I can do 30. If I can do 30, maybe I can do 40. And each time I went out, no matter how many miles I did, I was just so energized and excited and happy and having so much fun the entire time I was out there, you know. And that's part of the reason that I felt like this is something that I could accomplish ultimately, after Bethany convinced me. So for me, it wasn't really formal training because I didn't consider myself an athlete at this point. It was more just, I loved getting out for huge days, and I was just doing that a ton. When we realized we were going to go for this, I did purposefully plan my Northville Placid Thru-Hike 3 weeks ahead of time, because I thought that would be just a great test, see where I'm at, just, you know, kind of condition my body to day after day long miles. So we did that in 7 days. We were averaging about 20 miles a day on the Northville Placid Trail, and I felt awesome at the end. I didn't want to come out. I was like so upset the last day when we were walking out, and I was like, okay, I think that's a sign that I'm ready for this. So
yeah. Yeah, and for me, I had before the pandemic, I was training to go to Denali, and you know, before the world got shut down, and so just heavy packs. You know, that's a little bit of my background coming from, I was a wilderness therapy instructor, and we just had like 60, 70-pound packs. But it's so crucial. Like if you're not used to carrying weight, it's almost nearly impossible to do. You know, like I've since the Thru-Hike switched over to go lighter and faster, and this would be challenging for me to do today, like with the amount of weight. So it was more weight training with like a pack during the summer for me, once I thought that I was going to go for it again. But you know, even like Katie, neither one of us knew we were doing this until about 2 months before it. And I recognized in her that she was already in the physical shape to be able to do it, and had the mental strength to do it. And then everything else has to fall together anyway. So we had what it took. And yeah. And I went barefoot a lot to toughen feet, and doing it strategically in September to like have your hiking calluses. And so you're just not like, we only had one blister the whole time. Katie didn't have any.
yeah, that's one of my favorite statistics from the Thru-Hike is one blister between us.
Yeah.
That's great. Reinhardt makes a statement. You gals are absolutely amazing. Thanks for sharing. When is your book coming out?
We get this question a lot, actually.
Yeah.
Well, Bee's the writer. She's gonna have to write it.
Yeah, I think yeah, it's brewing. It's definitely brewing, because you have to have the backdrop happen, and I think it's kind of coming out, because like you know, the Thru-Hike was just this like beautiful event for both of us, and now we're doing, you know, different things, and it's really like shaping what we're doing and who we are and who we're becoming. So it's more, but the book idea is definitely there. So if anyone knows of an agent, like hook me up.
Dave, we should probably note that question comes from an author. I don't know if you want to.
Oh, nice. So that's even more of a compliment. Thank you.
Yeah.
Reinhardt wrote his book about his AT adventure. So
nice. That's awesome.
The next question is from Jim Miller. He says, what an amazing trip. Did you follow a previous route, or did you create a new one?
Yeah, so we followed Corey and Jan. I do feel like there's been some variation to their route, but it holds pretty true. So, you know, some trails have changed. They've been altered just a little bit. But we pretty much did that route and we broke it out different ways. And I consider that to be the through hike, you know, like there are different ways to do it unsupported, but I think the through hike starts at Corey's Road and it ends at like Esther. So it has a real nice flow to it. It was such a beautiful route. I think that's what was happening too on day 6 for me. I was just falling in love with what we were doing, you know, going from mountain range to mountain range in the Adirondacks, and you get to notice like the personalities of each mountain range and the difference in rocks and trees and like these little subtle details that just like change. And it was just really beautiful to see the high peaks in that way, because it's always been a really special place to me, and I've wanted to do that for so long.
Thanks. Bill Schweinfurth asked, what's the next big challenge that the two of you have planned?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there's a lot of things on both of our radars. Well, we did attempt the supported 46 back in this past August. B made an awesome run at that and got majority of the way through it. So we got through that effort with me as her coordinator and her as the athlete. Which was a really beautiful experience, because supported is so much different than unsupported, and you really have to be vulnerable and trust your team. And we both come from a very, you know, kind of Spartan unsupported background. So it was interesting, and I think a great learning experience to go through that activity together. And then since then, I've really tried to turn my focus a little bit more to trail running and racing. And so that's kind of my focus at the moment. I'm putting together my trail racing calendar for the year for the first time. Like I mentioned before, you know, before the unsupported, I didn't really consider myself an athlete. So I'm kind of exploring that part of me. What does it mean to be an athlete, and what does that look like for me? And, you know, how do I want to approach racing? And one of the things that I've really discovered over the winter as I've started to formally train for the first time is, you know, I want to make sure that when I go into this race season, my first race season, I'm really coming in with, you know, like love and camaraderie and racing myself and racing the course, and not worrying too much about, you know, being competitive necessarily, but just being the best athlete that I can be. So, yeah, there's going to be some cool races on my calendar this year. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, then you'll hear about those, and we'll see how it goes.
Thanks, Katie.
Yeah.
Next, go ahead, Bethany.
Oh, I was just going to say I'm kind of open to all. I'm hoping to get back up high again. Hopefully going to Kenya in May to do Mount Kenya, and would love to get out west and do some climbing out there. And I miss the bigger mountains, and yeah, but the world of FKTs is really intriguing to me, and I hadn't really known too much about it before because I was just so focused on doing the through hike. And once that got accomplished, there's a lot more out there, and so I'm just kind of like open to see where it goes, but I'll be in the mountains, whatever it is.
Great. Jackson asks, any notable encounters with animals?
On the through hike, no. You know, that's funny. A lot of people ask that, and because we were in the woods for so long, we did expect to have, you know, some more animal encounters, but really it was just squirrels and chipmunks for the most part. We didn't really, you know, we didn't see any bear or anything like that. But I do have to say, you know, I think we're both kind of sticklers for food system management. And that's a huge factor, is if, you know, if you're not attracting wildlife with your food, if you're managing that correctly, you know, if you're keeping your food in your canister when you're not actively cooking it and eating it, things like that, you're just going to have less of a chance of encountering wildlife in general because you're not attracting them.
Yeah. Heard owls. That was always special, hearing owls at night. I love owls. And yeah, I was surprised at how like bold chipmunks are. coming for your food and then biting into your pack, like when you're sitting right there. I'm just like, I'm impressed at how bold they are.
Katie asked, did you run any of it, like on the roads in between?
No running. I tried to run to Alan and he yelled at me.
I was like, I'm not doing this.
Yeah, no, that's kind of the unique thing about the unsupported too, is when people think FKT's fastest known times, they think running, they think fast pace, but with the unsupported, you're sustaining for, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever, however many days it takes you. And you just really can't be running, especially with a full pack on your back. It's just not, it would be so much wear and tear on the joints, which, is part of the reason that the very little criticism that we've had where people have said, oh, you're doing it so fast, you can't enjoy it. We kind of are like, actually, we're probably moving slower than you normally move on trail. That's kind of the irony of the situation.
Mark asks, how did you navigate? And did you have any navigational issues?
We didn't have, I can't recall any specific navigational issues we had. We both know the trails so well. We've been out there so many times that we didn't really need to think about it too much on trail. For the bushwhacks, like for example, when we bushwhacked from Dial to the Dix Trail, I just pulled out my compass and we set an azimuth, and those are pretty straightforward bushwhacks, and you just kind of stay course and you run into your landmark, whatever you're aiming for eventually, and get yourself there. For the bushwhack from Big Slide to Porter, we did have a track we could follow, but for the most part, we were just following a bearing and going from there. So yeah, it was, I have a background in land navigation, so that's really, I'm old school. Like if I could have roll down windows in my car still, I would. They just don't really make cars with those anymore. I like manual things. I trust them. I trust myself. So my go-to is always map and compass, but we did have our GPS track on our phone for the one more complicated bushwhack if we needed it.
Katie and Bethany, I think I'm gonna cut this off now. You've given such a tremendous talk, and I know many people have enjoyed it. I've seen messages pop up on the chat. Thank you very, very much.
Yes, thank you.
We greatly appreciate you joining us and giving this presentation on your fast own time for the 46.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna keep the Zoom meeting open for a few more minutes if people have other questions or want to share anything or just want to chat for a minute or two. And Bethany has just posted her email address. So if anyone wants to send a note to her, that's it. But I'll keep the Zoom meeting open for a few more minutes for people to chat or ask questions or whatever.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for coming.
Yes, thank you. And on that note, Katie and I are always willing to help people. If anyone's interested in learning more about the Thru-Hike, or they know of someone who's like interested in any of this stuff or just getting outside, we have a lot of resources, so we like to connect and network. And I understand not everyone's on social media, so I threw in my email there too.
Thanks.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny because we get the question a lot, are you gonna go for it again and go for the overall time? And the thing that would be the most meaningful, I think, for us is if another woman came to us and said, I want to do this, will you help me, plan the logistics and that sort of thing. So if you know anyone, we're like so excited, to help another woman go for this and start just getting more female names up on the board and getting more representation. Send them our way.
Okay. Another question, Vicky asks, do you know the overall mileage and elevation gain of the route? Now, I know Vicky came in late and it's in the beginning of the presentation. And just so that everybody knows, it is being recorded. It will be posted on the GVC website. Wait a couple of weeks for that to happen, but it will be there as well. But could you repeat Bethany and Katie, just the overall
Yeah.
mileage and elevation gain?
Yep,
Yep.
yeah, no problem. It was overall, it was 183 miles and 65,100 feet of elevation gain. We averaged 26 miles a day and 9,300 feet of gain a day.
Yeah, damn.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That was
Thank
incredible.
you. Thank you all for sticking
yeah.
around.
Awesome.
Well,
Thanks for
Bethany
being
and
here,
Katie,
everyone.
thanks again. I think I'll be signing off. Well, Mark asked about what footwear did you wear?
Yeah, I had La Sportiva Raptors.
Yep, and I wore Ultra Lone Peaks.
Yeah.
So I like the wide toe box. I attribute that to my lack of blisters.
Great. Well, thank you again.
Thank
Thanks.
you, Katie, for helping organize this. Appreciate
Yes,
it.
definitely. Yeah, we had a lot of fun.
Oh, good. We did too. So thank you.
Have a good night, everybody.
Yes, thank you again.
Okay, good night.
Bye now.